Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Pablo. I'm Lynn Kinsman. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm going to be your song leader today, and I'm also a member of your board of trustees. This is Pablo Willie Bustos on the piano, our music director, and I invite you to embrace music to begin our service by rising if you're willing and able, and if you're online, that's you too, and join us in singing Wake Now My Senses, number 298 if you have a book. Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in awe. Keep with the web of creation your vow. Giving breeze.
Chico Zico is the network editor-in-chief, and Ekaterina Kapikadze, an anchor and news director. Welcome both of you. It's good to see you.
Good morning. I am Reverend AJ. I use he and him and his pronouns, and I'm your assistant minister here at the First Unitarian Church of Rochester, New York. Our congregation is served by the Reverend Sherry Holiday Kwan as our lead minister. Unfortunately, they tested positive for COVID last night, and so you're stuck with me. We had contemplated, well, the last I heard, they were feeling fine and okay, and so we contemplated, we could bring them in and Zoom them in on the screen or do this or that, to be COVID safe and all that, but we also realized if we're sick, we want to model resting and not just expecting to go on with business as usual. So here at First Unitarian Church of Rochester, our mission is that through spiritual connection and community, we listen deeply to others and ourselves, we open to wonder and transformation, and we serve together with love and humility. We acknowledge with respect the Seneca Nation, keepers of the Western Door, and part of the Haudenosaunee people on whose ancestral and contemporary lands First Unitarian now stands. If you are new or newish here today, please stop by our welcome desk in the lobby so we can help you get connected. And if you're here because you're going through a hard time or you're worried about someone else who is, please reach out as well. We have chaplains online in the chat. We have a chaplain. We have a chaplain here in the sanctuary with a name tag that says chaplain on it. So please reach out so we can support you and get connected. A few brief announcements. This upcoming Tuesday, there's a call from the Police Accountability Alliance to show up to the regular City Hall meeting on Tuesday night at 6 p.m. With signs, wearing all black. There's not going to be any speaking to City Council, but showing up to advocate for the Police Accountability Board staying independent and fully funded and fully staffed. So please get connected with Mary Hamley, who serves as our representative to the Police Accountability Board Alliance, if you want to learn more and get connected about that. But that's this Tuesday. Next Tuesday, we are joining with other local partners for a day of advocacy down in Albany to advocate for Daniel's Law, which this life-saving bill would allow for the creation of non-police first responder teams for people in crisis, which is a critical step in decriminalizing mental health in New York. Please contact Megan Garvey or Reverend Sherry, as they'll be the one going along as long as they're feeling better. Just if you reach out, don't expect a response too quickly. Now, as we settle into this sacred time and space, I invite you to take a deep breath wherever you are, light a chalice wherever you may be online, and here in the sanctuary, our worship associate Elise will light our chalice. Please join me in our unison words. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and mysteries of this great gift.
Good morning. My name is Elise. I use she, her pronouns. When Ed and I still lived in Illinois, we had a wonderful group of friends, most of whom we met through the UU church that we belonged to there. Together, we shared meals, we celebrated birthdays and other milestone events. One of the couples in the group had an adult son who decided to try his hand at stand-up comedy in Chicago. Now, his parents were very proud, and they decided to organize an evening where a group of us would go downtown and enjoy a performance. Dinner reservations were made, the tickets were purchased, and about 20 of us went downtown for a fun evening. We enjoyed a delicious meal and many, many laughs at the comedy club. And after we bid goodbye to our friends, two of our friends and Ed and I walked towards the car. We were walking through the parking garage when all of a sudden, my right heel slips out from under me. I fall backwards and land on my bum. Now, all at once, I was embarrassed. I was kind of angry. I was in pain. Immediately, Ed and our friends came to me and said, "Are you all right?" And they helped me up. And I bruised my wrist and I bruised my pride. But mostly I was okay. Now, there was one thing that happened though. I found myself with this rising sense of indignation. What foolish person had left something on the ground right where someone could slip and fall on it? And what was that thing down there anyway? I looked at the ground, and there it was. Now remember, I've just taken a classic cartoon backward fall right outside the comedy club. What do you think it was? It was a banana peel. Ed would later say, "Only you, Elise, only you." So I looked at Ed and my friends and I said, "It's a slimy brown banana peel." And they laughed and laughed and laughed. In fact, they might have laughed all the way home in the car. It took me a little longer to see the humor. And I think that's why we come to church. So that we can surround ourselves with people who lift us up when we fall and make sure we're okay and laugh along with us when some crazy thing that life throws us our way happens to us. May it be so. I invite you now to rise as you are able to greet the neighbors around you. If you're online, type a greeting into the chat, and you might even want to share a time that you fell and someone helped you get up.
Good morning. They say if you can't laugh, it's not worth it. Weren't those great opening words, I thought? Good morning, I'm Gregory North, your congregational president. I use he, him pronouns. And our first reading this morning is from chapter 48 of the Tao Te Ching, translated by Stephen Mitchell. In pursuit of knowledge, every day something is added. In the practice of the Tao, every day something is dropped. Less and less do you need to force things until you arrive at non-action. When nothing is done, nothing is left undone. True mastery can be gained by letting things go their own way. It can't be gained by interfering.
Our second reading is from Rilke's Book of Hours, Love Poems to God, translated by Joanna Macy. I believe in all that has never yet been spoken. I want to free what waits within me so that what no one has dared to wish for may for once spring clear without my contriving. If this is arrogant, God, forgive me, but this is what I need to say. May what I do flow from me like a river, no forcing and no holding back, the way it is with children. Then in these swelling and ebbing currents, these deepening tides moving out, returning, I will sing to you as no one ever has, streaming through widening channels into the opening sea.
I invite you now to share some moments of silence within and beyond the sanctuary. I invite you into your own breath. Thank you for sharing these breaths with me. I invite you now into the spirit of meditation, reflection, and prayer. I begin with these words adapted from the Reverend Alex Klingenberg. Great mystery which grounds us and surrounds us, divine presence known by many names and in many ways, place of deep longing in my heart. Find your way from silence to voice. Give me strength and courage to speak truth through my life. For I am a creature of the universe, small but infinite, a momentary body in the sea of life, and also the sea itself. I am a gathered bit of energy and one who gathers. a creation and a creator. Let me not hold too tightly to one form and lose the other, for we are not form but process, ever changing and ever renewing. Help us see that we are neither the beginning nor the end, but something perfectly natural and imperfectly divine. Spirit of life, earth and sea and sky, hold me close in your ever-present embrace of love, as I lament and rage against all that denies the holy flourishing of every human being, for all my anger at the injustices of the world, the denigration of human dignity of our trans and non-binary siblings and kin, of the immigrant and the laborer, of those labeled different, those made vulnerable, those already marginalized, for the ecological disasters of human making which poison the earth and air, born of the evils of deregulation and abdication of responsibility. All the wars waged that go on for years, serving nothing but greed and empire and destruction. For all the little betrayals that I experience and those that I witness, and especially those that I commit in my own life. For all this anger at the injustices of the world, O source of life and renewal, grant me healing for my own agitated and wounded soul. Grant me companions and allies that I might listen to and learn from others and work together to make all things new. May I find my way back to you, back to source, back to inspiration, back to my own sacred self, that I might know myself, breathe my own breath, feel my own feelings, take charge of my own agency to make my world for the better, and to be open and flexible to how I am being asked to change, how I am being asked to change the world. Buoyed by spirit, anchored by community. May I drink deeply from the ocean of justice and possibility. May it be so. Amen. We enter now into community ritual to bring what is on our hearts and lay it on the altar of community and spirit. Honoring the complexities of life in this moment, I invite you to bring to mind whatever grief or growth or gratitude is most present on your mind or most heavy on your heart, most alive within you. Online, you are invited to share it in the chat, and here in the sanctuary, we invite you to light one of the candles at the altars. If you would like an usher to bring a candle to you, please simply raise your hand. May we now share in this ritual of community care and witness to one another's hearts. all that we hold in our hearts for ourselves, for each other, and for the world is now held by this community and by a larger love that will not let us go. Amen. And blessed be.
Everything our church does for ourselves and others is made possible by what we bring to it. Each week, we practice shared generosity to support the work and witness of Unitarian Universalism in Rochester. Half of our Sunday offering goes to a partner organization working to create a more just and loving world. And today, we share our plate with Black Physicians Network of Greater Rochester, an innovative nonprofit organization made up of over 60 physicians who work to reduce health disparities and improve the health of the community by increasing the number of Black physicians. You are encouraged to give online at rochesterunitarian.org/donate or by Venmo or here in person in our offering baskets. In the spirit of abundance and generosity, our offering will now be received with gratitude.
It's a Friday night in Cambridge, Massachusetts, mid-September of 2017. I'm sitting on concrete bleachers next to my wife with popcorn in hand. We're watching the Harvard Crimson enter the football stadium to band music and audience cheers. Now, Harvard is not known for the athletic prowess of their football team, but apparently the visiting team, I think from a school in Connecticut, had decidedly less. By the end of the first quarter, we were up 21 points and maintained an impressive lead all the way until the final score of 51-21. And it made me wonder, what must it be like to be on the losing team in a landslide like that, where there's so little reason to think that things could ever turn around? I imagine that it must take a sort of mindfulness practice wherein the larger picture of the score and how things are going is set aside in order to focus on the play at hand. Granted, I'm sure that the coaches or whoever is in charge of the overall strategy, the overall plan, they do take into account what the score is when determining exactly what kind of strategies to employ and what risks to take. But for the player, I assume that their situation must require tuning all of that out and just focusing on whatever is right in front of them. This play, this attempt, this blocker, this catch. And I find myself imagining that this would be good advice for the players of the winning team, too. Don't get too self-assured or feel too safe. Execute the plan as well as you can, regardless of what the current score is. Let the points fall as they will. More than simply good advice for athletes, this sort of detachment from results is also held as a virtue in many religious traditions. In particular, I think of the Bhagavad Gita, and in it the instruction that Krishna gives to Arjuna within it. So Arjuna, the warrior, is at a crossroads and wondering whether to follow his dharma and go to war. To follow his dharma being the social and moral and religious obligations dictated to him by his caste, in this case being a warrior. Krishna, his charioteer, reveals himself to not only be a servant and a friend, but also to be God himself, the ultimate incarnate, and proceeds to instruct him about many things. Krishna teaches that the path to enlightenment and liberation is renunciation. Not renunciation of the world entirely, but renunciation of the results of one's actions. Arjuna is told he should do his dharma and not worry about what results may come from his doing it. The following is a translation from the Gita by Stephen Mitchell. You have a right to your actions, but never to your actions' fruits. Act for the action's sake, and do not be attached to inaction. Self-possessed, resolute, act without any thought of results, open to success or to failure. In the introduction to his translation, Stephen Mitchell interprets this and similar passages as saying that, quote, the spiritually mature being lets all things come and go without effort, without desire for any foreseen result, carried along the current of a vast intelligence. In the worldview of the Gita, this sort of renunciation is related to a surrender to a sort of deterministic, fatalistic universe, personified, that universe being personified by the Lord of all, the ground of being, called Krishna, or Brahman, or God. It is the vast intelligence. And the relationship to this intelligence is a mutual one, where the renunciation, being able to do that, is enabled by having trust in the Lord. And conversely, true faith in Lord Krishna engenders and even requires one to make such a renunciation. Lord Krishna is in ultimate control. Arjuna, or the individual, determines their own action. There is free will in this system, but Lord Krishna, or everything outside of the individual, if you will, is what determines the ultimate results. So, setting aside divine determinism for a moment, I trust this sounds familiar. It certainly rings true for me. No matter what we as individuals do, in a sense, we are at the ultimate mercy of the collective actions of all other people and all other forces in the universe. And facing this reality can cause, understandably, quite a bit of uncertainty, anxiety, and frustration. However, as a religious person, I take it as liberating, good news, because I think what it really comes down to is what you believe about all those external actions and forces, what you believe about the Lord of all existence, what you believe about the fundamental ground of reality, what you believe about the collective direction and character and possibility of humanity. You see, as a religious pluralist, as a Unitarian Universalist minister, I try to consider the issue or the topic in several different languages, spiritual languages, if I can. And so, in the language of universal theism, for instance, I would say that I believe that God ordains a future of justice and compassion and liberation that we are called to and will eventually establish, and that our individual fates are ultimately in good, benevolent hands. Now, of course, we must respond to this call. It requires action on our part. We must submit to the will of God in order to make it happen. Submission, of course, being perhaps the main emphasis of Islamic theism. Since the word Islam means submission, religious historian Karen Armstrong defines a Muslim as one who has made this submission of their entire being to Allah and his demand that human beings behave to one another with justice, equity, and compassion. Now, this phrasing should sound familiar to those of you who know your 7 UU principles by heart. It's the second one. However, to shift gears, if I'm speaking in a more humanist key, I would shift this language of faith in the Lord and replace it with faith in the foundational goodness of humanity. Faith that if, and only if, we contribute to society and act morally and work to build a better tomorrow without being attached to actually seeing that day realized ourselves, it will come. The tension here in all of these, of course, is between being so comforted by our faith in ultimate reality or in humanity that we are not motivated to action because we think our success is secured anyway, and on the other hand, not having enough faith to feel that what actions we do take will be effective or meaningful. Another non-theistic version of this concept can be found in the Tao Te Ching, much closer to the Gita in its articulation. Now, a central concept in Taoism is wei wu wei, which means literally doing, not doing. It's easy to misinterpret this, at least in English translation, as acquiescence to the status quo. Well, I will act by not acting. And enlightenment consists in resignation and retreat from the world. But as Stephen Mitchell again explains the concept in his introduction to his translation of the Tao Te Ching, he refers to how, quote, a good athlete can enter a state of body awareness in which the right stroke or the right movement happens by itself, effortlessly, without any interference of the conscious will. This is a paradigm for non-action, the purest and most effective form of action. End quote. And so our readings this morning spoke to this. Less and less do you need to force things until finally you arrive at non-action. When nothing is done, nothing is left undone. May what I do flow from me like a river, no forcing and no holding back, the way it is with children. Now, of course, I grant that this is much more easily said than accomplished. There is so much in our country and in our world that is truly unwell. We are confronted daily by the realities of systemic racism, sexism, homophobia, Islamophobia, oppression, all the ways that hatred and bigotry have been and are being woven deeper and deeper into the fabric of our society. I could spend an entire sermon just listing issues that do have legitimate claims to our attention and that do need to have basically immediate action taken upon them. The call is serious, but what comes first? And what's the most effective way to start? And who do we partner with? And how do we do it? How do we make sure we're not unintentionally making things worse and causing harm to some, even as we're trying to make the world better? How do we make sure we aren't perpetuating the very evils that we seek to overcome? We find ourselves asking the same questions Krishna does as he prepares for war. Is this really what I should be doing? How do we know that the work we will do even amount to anything at all? Now, these questions are a natural response to the overwhelming task and tasks before us, but I'm not sure they're actually the right questions to be asking or the right place to start. Because instead, I want to ask, what are each of us called to do in this moment, in every moment, on this day? Do we try to interfere and force things, adding more and more until we are overwhelmed with the magnitude and complexities of the tasks we have set before ourselves? Or can we practice doing, not doing, and let things arise more naturally? That is, let righteous actions spring clear from within ourselves, flowing forth like water, following a path of least resistance around obstacles, or whatever cannot be completely eroded right now, and yet never ceasing, always carving a bold, if circuitous river through the land to the shores of the ocean. I want to be clear, I'm not suggesting silent or passive acquiescence to the evil that exists in the world. I'm not suggesting that we ignore the results of our actions, or that it doesn't matter if our actions for justice achieve anything or not. In football, winning still matters. In the Gita, dharma matters. In society, justice always matters. But what I am saying is that the results of our actions, and indeed the results of others' actions upon us, they needn't affect how we think or feel about our actions or the need to take them. They needn't be the motivation behind our action. They needn't make us lament or regret our previous actions or inactions. We can still identify working for justice as a moral duty, as part of our dharma. And that duty remains whether we think we have achieved success or whether we think no progress can possibly be made against the obstacles, or whether we feel bogged down by our own imperfections and mistakes. We must avoid inert complacency on the other hand, and paralyzing despair on the other. You have a right to your actions, but never to your actions' fruits. Act for the action's sake, and do not be attached to inaction. Perhaps the lesson for social justice is this: rather than identifying an idealized future we would like to arrive at, we should remain in the present moment and discern what is the most just, most ethical action that we can take now. What does the Lord require of you today? What action would be as natural and righteous as non-action? What is your dharma, your duty? Rather than having the desired results as the cause and motivation for your actions for justice, what if the righteousness of the action itself were the cause? Now, don't get me wrong, these two are hardly polar opposites, and in fact, they probably match up with each other more often than not. Righteous action is often most likely to lead to justice and good outcomes, and justice is often best accomplished through righteous actions. But the wisdom of much ancient sacred literature teaches us to focus on the action itself as the means and the ends to justice. And modern prophets also repeat and echo this warning. In my last year of seminary education at Harvard Divinity School, when I attended that outstanding football game, Dr. Cornel West gave the convocation address that fall. Now, this was 6 years ago, not fully a year into Trump's presidency, and so it was a slightly different time, and yet Dr. West's words still ring true to my ears today in 2023. He said that the time we are in is one of falling American empire, and that the dominant forces of this time will be hatred, envy, resentment, xenophobia, anti-Jewish hatred, anti-Arab hatred, anti-Palestinian hatred. It'll be targeted on women and especially black folk and brown. He said that it may just be that all we end up able to accomplish in our resistance is to go down swinging. He clarified, if we can turn it around and regenerate, reinvigorate, revitalize the best of American democracy, fight for rights and liberty, try to create some robust public life, public conversation, public schools, public health care, and so on, then we have a chance. But that's not ultimately something that's in our control. What we ought to do now is to decide in the end who we really are. End quote. So maybe we just go down swinging. For various reasons, I don't actually think that that is where we are going, but it feels important that this is where we are prepared to go. I suspect as well that Dr. West doesn't fully believe that is our fate. As a self-proclaimed gut bucket Black Baptist, Dr. West, I think, has the theological resources for an ultimate orientation of hope. But the point he's making is that we aren't in the fight because we think we're going to win. We're in the fight because it's right. It's the right thing to do, to side with love, to resist, to protect the most vulnerable in society. It's right because it's our dharma. It's right because it's what God tells us to do. It's right because we can't not do it. It's as simple as breathing. Because without forcing or interfering, the call for justice wells up from within us and from without us, from our brothers and sisters and siblings and kin in need. Now, in order to do this, in order to focus on our actions as the means and the ends at the same time, to have the resolve to go down swinging if it comes to that, while at the same time avoiding the despair of assuming that that's all we could hope to accomplish, I believe we need two things. We need to trust in the larger forces of the universe, however understood, coupled with an unyielding sense of duty. Let us be like the athlete in the red zone. Whatever is on the scoreboard, whatever the results of the play end up being, let us have faith in the ultimate and do not doing, taking action as we determine it to be required of us, naturally and effortlessly, without interfering. Self-possessed, resolute, act without any thought of results, open to success or failure. Please join me in singing hymn 131, Love Will Guide Us.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot
Please stick around after worship for connection, and don't think too hard about what you will attend. Just let it arise from you effortlessly. We've got our CUPS group, our Covenant of UU Pagans group, offering a session on divination and learning more about paganism there. We've got Ukulele 101, and we've got handbell choir, so lots of musical options. And I'm leading a session in 110 on General Assembly 2023, who will be the new president of the Unitarian Universalist Association. And before we close, we end with our chalice extinguishing and benediction. So please join me in the words to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. May we free what waits within ourselves and let it spring clear without our contriving. May what we do flow from us like a river, no forcing and no holding back, the way it is with children. May it be so. Go in peace.